Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, today we are taking a deep, super high-speed dive into the microscopic world of an everyday technology that is literally hiding in plain sight. Seriously, it turns out there is absolute sheer computational magic hiding inside the architecture and the hidden geometry of the standard QR code.
Think about the last time you scanned a menu at a restaurant or, a boarding pass at the airport. It felt instantaneous, right? Well, that's because everything we're going to cover today happens in about 0.001 seconds. Literally, in the fraction of a single millisecond it takes your smartphone camera to read that code, it performs an absolute miracle of mathematics and engineering.
Okay, let's dive into this. The story of this millisecond miracle actually kicks off back in 1994. A Japanese engineer named Masahiro Hara, working at Denso Wave, which is a Toyota subsidiary, needed a way to track automotive parts faster than standard one-dimensional barcodes, because those could only hold about 20 characters. So he created the quick response code. By 2000, it became an official ISO standard. Then, of course, the 2020 pandemic hit, triggering this massive boom in contactless tech. Fast forward to today, and we are looking at over 41 million daily scans. It evolved from this really niche factory floor solution to an invisible pillar of global infrastructure. Section 1. Anatomy of the grid, the microlandscape.
So, when you look at any QR code, the very first thing your eyes are drawn to are those three big squares in the corners. We call those finder patterns. Masahiro Hara was actually inspired by the black and white stones on a Go board when he created these. But the real genius here? It's the mathematical ratio, 1:1 to 3:1:1. If a scanner sweeps across that square, horizontally, vertically, or even diagonally, it hits that exact run-length sequence of black, white, black, white, black. This magic number allows the scanner to instantly figure out where the code is and how it's oriented, even if you're holding your phone completely upside down. And that missing fourth corner? That simply tells the computer which way is up. Beyond the finder patterns, there are a few other absolute must-have structural landmarks. We've got the individual black and white squares, which are called modules. Surrounding the whole thing is a mandatory quiet zone, a white border that is exactly 4 modules wide. Then there are separators around the finder patterns and a single permanently fixed dark module. And what's truly fascinating is that these aren't just, design flourishes. That quiet zone and those separators are vital, empty spaces. They literally stop your camera from getting totally confused by any nearby text or graphics printed on a cereal box or movie poster. Within that grid, we also have timing patterns and alignment patterns. The timing patterns are alternating black and white modules connecting those large corner squares, basically establishing a strict coordinate grid. But the alignment patterns are those smaller internal squares you see popping up on larger, more complex codes. And this brilliantly illustrates how a QR code adapts to the messy physical world. I mean, if a QR code is printed on a curved coffee cup or a wrinkled t-shirt, those alignment patterns act as internal anchor points, letting your scanner reconstruct the grid cell by cell without any distortion.
Section 2. Encoding the data, writing the matrix. Now, a QR code doesn't just store readable text. It converts your input into a binary bit stream using one of 4 ISO standardized encoding modes. We have numeric mode, which can hold a massive 7,000 plus digits. Alphanumeric, which holds over 4,000 characters but actually only uppercase letters. Then there's byte mode, and kanji mode for Japanese double byte characters. Now, byte mode is incredibly important today because it supports the lowercase letters and special characters that are absolutely essential for encoding modern web URLs. A smart encoder will actually mix and match these modes within a single code to save the maximum amount of space. Once that data is converted into binary, where a black module is a 1 and a white module is a 0, it gets poured into the grid. And it doesn't just go left to right like you're reading a book. It follows a highly specific zigzag path. It starts way down at the bottom right corner, snakes upward in a precise 2-column wide path, shifts left, and then moves downward, weaving super carefully around the finder and alignment patterns. It basically turns what looks like an abstract jumble of pixels into a strictly organized, continuous river of data. But looking at that river of data, you might be wondering, why do QR codes always look so chaotic and random? Like, if I just encoded a really long string of zeros, shouldn't there be a huge blank white space right in the middle of the code? Well, the answer to that is data masking. You see, large blocks of pure black or pure white would actually blind or confuse the scanner. So right before the code is finalized, the system applies one of 8 mathematical masking formulas using an XOR operation to the data area. Now, what's really interesting about this process is that it actively tests all 8 patterns, gives each one a penalty score based on how clumpy it looks, and then automatically chooses the mask with the lowest score.
It's just an ingenious way to guarantee that static-like, perfectly randomized appearance that optical scanners read best.
Section 3. The scanning pipeline. Reading in reverse. So the crucial point here is that reading a QR code isn't just snapping a photograph. It is a rapid-fire sequence of highly complex mathematical operations. First, binarization converts your camera's raw image into pure black and white pixels. Then, homography fixes the angle. The processor then unmasks the data, applies error correction, and finally decodes the payload into a usable web link. Every single time you point your camera, this perfect sequence executes. Let's focus on step 2 for a second, homography. When you point your phone at a QR code from a weird angle, say you're leaning back 45 degrees across a cafe table, your phone doesn't actually see a square. It sees a warped, stretched-out quadrilateral. But using the precise coordinates of those 3 finder patterns, your phone computes a homography. It performs a mathematical mapping that literally undoes the perspective distortion, snapping that skewed, stretched image right back into a perfect, flat, readable grid. I mean, it is sheer computational magic happening in a microsecond. But what if the code is scratched, faded, or torn? Well, that's where Reed-Solomon error correction comes in. This is the exact same deep space technology used to prevent skipping on CDs and to communicate with satellites. There are 4 selectable levels of redundancy here: level L, M, Q, and H. Level L can recover about 7% of lost data, while level H can recover up to an incredible 30%. This allows the processor to literally rebuild missing pieces of the code on the fly without ever needing you to rescan it. As the documentation notes, a code at level H can lose almost a third of its area and still decode. That level of redundancy is staggering. And if you've ever seen a QR code with a company's logo pasted right smack in the middle of it, this is exactly how they achieve that. The designer literally just punches a hole straight through the data cells, pastes their logo in the blank space, and relies entirely on the Reed-Solomon error correction to quietly fill in the missing information behind the scenes. No magic, just straight math. Section 4. Static versus dynamic codes. Real-world applications. You hear these terms thrown around a lot in marketing nowadays. A static code has the final data permanently hard-coded right into the matrix. If you print it on a billboard, you can literally never change where it goes. A dynamic code, however, encodes a short URL that redirects to your actual destination, meaning you can update the final web link later without ever reprinting the physical code. But here is the most fascinating part. From an engineering standpoint, the physical grade generated for both is exactly identical. The difference has absolutely nothing to do with the QR structure. It's purely about digital routing on the internet. Let's move to and see how this builds a profound appreciation for what Masahiro Hara and his team created. One of our sources perfectly encapsulates the brilliance of this technology. It is the same category of quiet infrastructure as the DNS root servers, a piece of the technology that carries the whole thing but is almost never noticed. Denso Wave didn't even heavily enforce their patent. They just gave it to the world. It's a design so mathematically sound, so perfectly optimized, it hasn't needed a meaningful change in over 30 years. Which brings us to our final thought. The next time you casually scan a menu at a cafe or present a boarding pass at the airport, take a fraction of a second to think about the millisecond miracle happening inside that grid. From the GoBoard-inspired finder patterns to deep space error correction to rapid-fire homography. It really makes you wonder, what other invisible, brilliant systems are silently running our world right under our noses? Keep exploring, stay curious, and thanks for joining me on this explainer.